Man United versus Arsenal. The big Super Sunday clash we were all waiting for all weekend. Some people didn't think it lived up to the hype, but on reflection, I actually think it was a very good game and we learned a lot about the two teams. So today we're going to have a little talk about what we learned from Manchester United against Arsenal. If you're new to the channel, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. We really do appreciate it. Any of the support that we can get, trying to get to 10k by the end of the year, and we are well on course to do that. Let's get into it. So this is how Man United and Arsenal both lined up yesterday evening. And I don't think there was any major surprises. I think right now, Man United are trying to find what works in terms of their midfield options. Right now, I think the best options are Fernandes and Casemiro. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. But I think choosing Mason Mount is someone who adds a lot to the team in terms of what you can get out of him, especially when he's playing really well. And I thought yesterday he did have a good game. I thought Dorgu and Dalot offered different options than what maybe Man United fans are used to. And then obviously we had Mbeumo and Cunha up top, who I thought worked very well together. But on the other side, Arsenal, I think, would be disappointed with how they performed. I think Gyökeres was very much isolated. Saka and Martinelli weren't really in the game. Odegaard was in patches good, but overall a very disappointing display. But I think what we'll do is we'll talk about Man United first, and we'll talk about how good they were on transition. So we're moving on slightly. This is how Man United were getting a lot of joy. I think it was something that was very brave from Ruben Amorim, because when Arsenal were on the attack and they were trying to create overloads, I think if we look at this section here, so Man United weren't afraid to sit in, sit deep, and you can see a lot of the time when they were defending, you had Dorgu, Shaw, De Ligt, Yoro, and Dalot as kind of a back five, and then you had Mount, Fernandes, and Casemiro then as a front three. And what he did was he allowed Mbeumo and Cunha to sit up and stay high. So when Man United did turn over the ball and say Fernandes or Mount, players that can pick a pass, when they were able to pick it up, then you had them getting this straight in, and they were going direct straight into, let me just show you here. They're going straight direct into Mbeumo and Cunha. And that's where we've seen a lot of joy in the first half. They were able to turn the ball over. Cunha and Mbeumo had some opportunities. They were able to go basically 2v2 against Saliba and Gabriel. And I think the first time we've probably seen this Man United team be exciting in a while. And the first time we've probably seen this Arsenal team struggle to cope with the intensity that another team has been able to put on them. And I think there was a lot of good signs from Man United in terms of maybe how they're going to line up this season. And I think the one thing they were missing last year was quality. They obviously have Sesko to come into this now as well, so it'd be interesting to see how he kind of comes into the team, because Cunha was the one that was playing as the centre forward yesterday. But I think overall there was a lot of positive signs in how United were moving the ball in transition. Now I think if I shift it on here, I would go back to this. So that was how they were in transition. And I think as well, just one thing to mention there, Dorgu was someone who was carrying a lot of impetus to get forward, and Dalot was maybe sitting in a little deeper when United were trying to make in the transition. But if we move it on to when United were in attack, so let me just get rid of these. So with United in attack, it was interesting because Dorgu was kind of the left winger. Mount was coming in a little bit more in between the lines. Fernandes was kind of pushing up to obviously support, and then Casemiro was kind of that sitting midfielder in the base. So when United were trying to break down Arsenal, they did find it a little bit more difficult. Now, I think Arsenal are a very good team in terms of defensive blocks, and I think that's what they're very good at. Like, not a lot of teams are going to score against Arsenal this year, and I think what they'll hope for is obviously that they can score more goals, because if they get to a team where they can score 2 or 3 goals a game, then that's where I think it'll be very hard to stop them from winning the league, because they are so solid defensively. But I think with Man United, there were some signs that they were going to be able to break them down, but I think for a lot of the part, Arsenal weren't that much trouble. Like, I'm trying to think of like a clear-cut chance where it was a 1v1 with David Raya. I don't think there were too many for Man United, and I think that's something that they'll want to obviously improve. I think from the other side as well, obviously Cunha and Mbeumo, there were signs they were obviously good in terms of their build-up play, and especially in transition. But I think we obviously, with United, what they missed last year was cutting edge. They missed someone who will take the chances, who will obviously, when the opportunity arises, that they'll be able to score the goals that they need to obviously climb the league. And I think that's something that was just missing yesterday. And I think Mbeumo and Cunha did 35 goals last season between the two of them. I think that's something that will come. I think yesterday it just didn't fall for them, and on another day it might have. I think they definitely deserved the draw. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did you think United deserved the draw? I think they did. But it was a good win for Arsenal in the end. On the flip side, Arsenal. I think most Arsenal fans would have snapped your hand off at a 1-0 win. Obviously, it's a win. They would have snapped their hand off at the win yesterday. But how they performed would be a little bit worrying. I think all the signs of what Arsenal struggled with last season were there again. I think bringing in Gyökeres, I know it's early days, but for the most part, he was very much isolated. I think Odegaard struggled to get it to get up with him. I think Saka, who was very much isolated with Shaw for a lot of time, and Dorio obviously coming into support. But I think Shaw, from United side as well, when Shaw is fit and fully available, I think he adds a lot to this team. But I think Saka really struggled to get into the game. And Martinelli on the other side, that's the left wing position is something that Arsenal are struggling to bring someone in for right now, but I think Martinelli was just not it. Odegaard was good in patches. He did create one or two chances for himself, but I think overall, this kind of quadrant of Arsenal players right now it's not clicking. And I think, listen, Gyökeres is someone who he scored over 50 goals in the last 2 seasons. If he gets chances, he will score. But I think that's the issue with this Arsenal team right now. They're not creating enough chances for someone of his level to obviously be getting the goals. I think yesterday we seen that. They just weren't creating enough chances. They weren't giving him the opportunities. There were sometimes that during the game that he maybe was pretty poor. Like I think if you go back to that 1v1 with, I think it was with De Ligt in the second half, and he leaves the ball behind him. He looked like somebody who hasn't had a full preseason. And I think we can't judge him right now, but over the course of, say, the next 5 to 10 games, we're going to see a lot more Gyökeres, and he will need to start hit the ground running and start getting the goals that is expected of him. Because when you pay big money for a striker, you're expecting him to come in, you're expecting him to get it over the line. I think that's what he needs to do. And I think yesterday, he'll obviously get a lot of the drumming on social media, but at the end of the day, Arsenal won, and that's all they will care about from that game. So it was an interesting game. I think we learned a lot about Man United. We learned a lot about Arsenal. I think 1-0 to the Arsenal is something that we always hear, and I think it was a good result for them. I think there would be maybe some concerns about the performance, but at the start of the season, you might be a little bit sluggish. You might feel you're not 100%, and I think getting the results is the main thing. For Amorim and for Man United, positive signs, but that's 7 wins in 28 games now for Ruben Amorim since he's come into Man United. He needs to start getting results, and quickly, because putting in performances, especially against the big teams, is something that Man United have done in the past, but they're going to be judged on how they perform against the teams that are lesser of them. And I think that's something that they will need to correct going forward. So, was interesting. Some positives for United. Obviously, a positive for Arsenal was getting the result. But let me know what you think in the comments. Were you impressed with Man United? Is the performance that Arsenal put on a concern? But we're going to learn a lot more about these teams as we go on. As always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. And I shall see you all on the next one. Cheers, guys.